AJ, down.
Be advised, your dog just got hit, took shrapnel in the stomach. And make your way to the safe house. I'll direct you as you go. Yeah, proceed forward. Roger that.
He doesn't like loud noises because he just brings his army stuff and he has to go out and go with them. It reminds him of war.
Bricks worked all the way up until he quit. And if he hadn't quit, who knows how long he would have stayed. That's how he checks the area. Huh?
No.
You reassuring everything's great? Perfect? Nothing getting us? He always comes back to get reassurance. If I'm not there reassuring him, that's when he starts getting destructive and panicking. If the thunder goes off, I instinctively get up, grab my pillow, grab my blanket, and I move to the living room. I'll usually sit there for a while just holding him and calming him down from his pacing, holding him on my lap, petting him, trying to find his ball, because he usually loses it in his panting. They give a lot, and they don't get much in return. A piece of equipment. That's exactly what they are.
These are future war dogs. Just 5 weeks old now, these Belgian Malinois puppies have a long road of training ahead of them. Almost half will go on to protect our troops in and out of war, finding roadside bombs, tracking suspects, and patrolling bases, saving countless human lives over their military career. The 100 puppies born here each year are distinguished by the double letter, which begins their name. Some of the puppies are named after fallen troops. This is the M litter. One of these double M puppies was named after fallen Special Forces soldier Michael Mansour. Dr. Stuart Hilliard is the manager of the Department of Defense breeding program.
Specifically, we're looking for boldness, which is the sort of confidence and outgoing behavior. Also, we want the puppies to show drive, to use their mouths on objects and toys, to play tug-of-war, and also to possess and play retrieving games. So those are the two things we're looking for: strong nerves and lots of drive.
This program trains 45 of the 300 dogs needed by the military each year. The other 250 dogs are purchased from breeders primarily based in Europe. Bricks was purchased in Germany in April of 2001.
Here's the owner's name, who they bought him from, where he's headed.
Color?
That's his first day. that's down at Lackland. When they pick them up, they always pose them in front of the door and then photograph them. His is certified explosives mark.
These dogs undergo extensive testing before entering the training program to officially become a military working dog. Sergeant First Class Casey Stevens is the course chief for the Military Working Dog School at Lackland Air Force Base.
This is basically what's called aid placement. Primarily it's used for getting the dog used to a pattern within a room. We want them to go and search pretty much free of the handler. So the dog will go in and work the room in a clockwise manner by themselves, focusing both low and high. And in the initial stages, we'll use this for when we're teaching them new odors. So we have multiple types of explosives that we'll teach them the odor, and we will introduce it here in an aid placement room. Initially, we'll pay them on the sniff, so as soon as they start to show a little bit of active sniffing behavior on the explosives or narcotics, we'll pay them with their toy. The final result is actually what's going on right now, where the dog works completely on their own and then goes into a final response of a sit. Yay, good girl. Typically when they leave here, they leave at the basic training level, and we don't want to deploy them immediately out of the box, if you will. It's kind of like an assembly line, it's like a production. Here at DTS, we put the dog together, we mold and shape them, and we create a product to put on the shelf, if you will. That product is the military working dog. When it gets out to the field, it's not quite ready for use yet because it still needs specialized training. Stuff that's more specific to Iraq and Afghanistan, the combat type of environment.
Good job, boys. Let's see what she does. She bad at it? No. She did? That's fair. We call her back to you.
Hey, Sergeant Sword, if you were to say halt the squad first.
Sergeant Sword, first name Nicholas. I'm with the United States Marine Corps. I deployed in November 2012.
Good job, buddy. That's a good boy, man. That's a good boy. Yes.
Training is real good. It's real effective. It's real diverse. You know, the thing about these dogs, he can be trained, basic training, and perform well, but then you bring out temperature, you bring out different terrain. We're coming from Okinawa, Japan, where the tropical jungle. And to come out here into a desert climate in a hot temperature and dry heat, you know, is very different. No, come.
Sniper has you.
A dog's sense of smell is up to 10 million times more sensitive than a human's. Military working dogs are trained to identify the odors of various explosives.
That's a good boy, man. That's a good boy.
We've done everything from searching roadways to, as you see behind me, searching villages, which is to mimic like the compounds we'll be searching when we go to Afghanistan in November. We're searching dried up wadis, open areas, vehicles.
Once they identify a possible hidden IED or cache, they sit and stare directly at the source, only breaking this to look back at their handler.
That's a good boy, bud.
And they do this all for their reward, a ball or calm.
That shit I'm getting to try to advance a little bit,
We want the dogs to get used to being in an area like this. The setup is very accurate. I mean, the materials might be a little bit different, but they'll even have doors that go up and down like that, and that's how they secure them. And the sacks that are outside might be grained or something like that. It's very realistic.
Hey, no. Get on. Good. Seat up. This way. Seat it up. Good, this way.
The Inter-Service Advanced Skills course at Yuma Proving Ground is the last stop for a dog team before they deploy. Teams travel from around the world to test their skills on this one-of-a-kind course. The main goal here is explosive detection, not just for the dog, but for the team as well.
I know he can find explosives, but we can defeat this program even better, or the IED network even better, if I can recognize it before I even send my dog down there. So some training has been based on teaching the handlers how to visually spot certain indicators that might show a possible IED in that area.
The wind is making it difficult for military working dog AJ to locate the source of a scent he has picked up on. But Sergeant Sword has noticed disturbed ground in the area and helps direct AJ to that spot. And it's an IED, buried 1 foot below the ground.
The handlers learn to crawl, walk, run in a sense. Getting them to run, as the analogy, is very difficult.
1, 2, 3, go.
Go. Bear crawl! Bear crawl!
I got you, bro. Let's go. There you go. Come on, keep pushing. I'm gonna hang on. Let's go. You're closing that gap. Come on. He's within sight now. Let's go. Come on. You got him. There you go. There you go. There you go. Come on. There it is. Big steps. There you go. Let's go. There you go. There you go. Shit, this is the heaviest part right here. Me. Let's go. Almost there. Get me home. Let's go. There you go. There you go. There you go.
Let's go, Raymond.
There you go.
Come on, Raymond. Let's go, dog.
All right, I'm good.
Better than what she has been.
For real?
I remember her used to cower me.
Yeah, she was like that for a while.
Cowbell going for a little bit longer.
An important part of training is acclimating to the constant sound of gunfire and explosions. But for soldiers and dogs, it is something you can never quite get used to. For Bricks, 12 years later and far from the battlefield, the sounds continue to haunt him.
He has become more and more terrified of loud noises. Booming, fireworks, explosives going off, gunfire. He'll literally tremble.
At first, she was a little skittish. As soon as I said stay and reinforced it and let her know everything's gonna be all right, the dog stayed. She didn't move around. She didn't really cower anything. She just trusted me that everything's gonna be all right. I'm gonna protect her when she's next to me.
The only way that they are able to tie a negative association with an IED, a loud blast, or the blast of a gunfire is if we teach them. We're the ones that display fear or discomfort, and the dog just feeds off of that. Constant habituation for the dogs to get them constantly ready to desensitize them from it. Hit it again.
We're watching the dog. You know, the dog was not born to just naturally tolerate these things. It came through training from starting off at a distance, starting off with something that was far less loud as this, you know.
The dog has no ill effects because of constant subjection to it. And because the dog is being good and showing us the behavior that we like,
we reward him for it. So what happens is the dog places a positive association with gunfire, a positive association with a simulator and IEDs going off and loud things and noises and blast. So the dog says, well, if I remain like this and stay in this window of good, then I have an opportunity of being rewarded for it. I have an opportunity of dad giving me, showing me love and petting me and telling me good boy and giving me my Kong. So you see that that's how a dog is supposed to look like.
Afghanistan is one of the most heavily mined countries in the world, and I'm here with my MDD Mike to eliminate or reduce the threat to coalition forces.
There are almost 3,000 military dogs stationed worldwide, with about 700 working in war zones. The U.S. military uses dogs not only for their keen sense of smell, but because of their relatively low weight. Most IEDs in Afghanistan are triggered by pressure plates, which are less likely to respond to a 60-pound dog over a soldier.
When I'm out there on patrol, the only thing that's in front of me is my dog. You know, a lot of times you don't have nobody out there watching out for you. You might have somebody behind you. There's nobody that's gonna tell me, hey, don't walk here. Only person that can tell me where to walk is my dog, so I trust him with everything I have.
Good mamas, good. Good girls. Good mom, good. Good girls.
I'm depending on him, my family's dependent on him, my wife is dependent on him to bring me back home.
Right now he's showing me that he responded on some kind of explosive. This time go ahead and recall him back to me and reward him with this toy in my pocket. I don't want to get no closer, that's why I'm stopped back here. He's showing me enough, there it is right there. Good boy! Good. Good. Good boys. Good. We live together. He's my little roommate. Pretty much the whole day. The only time we're not together is when I go eat dinner, breakfast, lunch, or the gym, or of course take a shower. I can't take him to the showers with me.
She actually sleeps in my bed every night. We cuddle most nights, so it's pretty good. We form a very close bond together.
Not only do they defeat IEDs and sniffing them out, you know, it's a morale booster. You know, you're out there on patrol, you might have gotten in gunfights, you're taking contact. One of your buddies might have got blown up. Nothing boosts up the morale of a platoon or a company to see that dog.
Heel. Nope. 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 Heel. Nope. Heel.
This dog is the only thing that I can say stay by women I see every day. I love him, he loves me.
Despite all that they do, military working dogs are officially classified as equipment.
He's got an NSN number, National Stock Number, so he's a piece of equipment. But as human beings, we're gonna have somewhat of an emotional attachment to it. But as a dog handler, that's where we got to find the happy medium. Where is it okay to, you know, build that rapport with that dog? But if you go too far, now he just becomes a pet. Now he's not out there doing his job, so you got to find that fine line between too much love and house dog.
Bricks deployed in 2005 as an improvised explosives detection dog.
The guys and their dogs are out there right on the front line. And that's where the dog has to be. He has to be on the front line. That's where he's going to do the most good. So that's what he's going to see. He's going to see all the dirty stuff that actually happens over there.
After a successful 8 months in Iraq, Bricks returned stateside and started displaying physical problems that couldn't be diagnosed. In 2007, Army veterinarian technician Cassandra Gardner transferred to the same base as Bricks in Washington State.
Bricks is accident prone. They like to say he's a malingerer because every 6 months or so he would have something that made it so he couldn't work. So he's had issues with just getting stressed, and he would come in not eating or sick to his stomach in the kennel. But when he came into the clinic, he would crawl right into my lap. I would sit on the floor and he would literally curl up in my lap like a cat, and I would stroke his face and he would start to close his eyes. He was that comfortable. He was ready to take a nap with me. I could sit there all day with Bricks. And he was genuinely happy to see me. It was a few years after his deployment that he actually stopped working. He was coming in a lot for lethargy. He was lacking stamina. They were taking him out on the convoy routes, and he'd get out of the vehicle and he'd start his route and lay down. And he just stopped eating completely. The handlers kept telling him he was just off, that, you know, there was something mentally wrong with the dog. Bricks had a lot of urine tests, blood tests, fecal tests. We did an ultrasound on his heart. He had his brain scanned. He had an abdominal ultrasound. He had a laparoscopic kind of exploratory at a civilian vet clinic where they kind of just ruled out anything. He had several biopsies done of different parts of his body just to rule out cancers or any kind of thyroid disorders or lymph node problems, and pretty much it just boiled down to agreeing with the handlers. It was just a mental thing.
By the end of 2009, after a deployment to Iraq and 8 years of military service, Bricks was diagnosed with canine post-traumatic stress disorder.
If a dog went to Afghanistan, it was working great, it did great at Yuma, it did great in Afghanistan for some period of time, now all of a sudden it's no longer working well, that's what we're calling PTSD.
Dr. Walter Berghardt is the leading authority on canine PTSD.
You know, we've defined canine PTSD as a collection of behavioral signs and physiologic signs that kind of fit together and seem to be fairly consistent with a performance failure that we see in military dogs during or after deployments, especially when there's combat involved.
About 5% of the dogs deployed to a combat zone have been diagnosed with canine PTSD. CNN reporter Atiya Abawi met military working dog Buck in early 2010 when she was embedded with Operation Mushtarak in Afghanistan.
Buck here is, he's called an IED detective dog. Unfortunately, he's actually been a little stressed out. PTSD from what I was told. Every time there's a bang, every time there's a boom, he jumps. Even if someone's walking by and kicks a rock, he jumps. Poor guys.
To help dogs like Buck, Dr. Berghardt first tries a process called desensitization,
which is to expose them to very low, non-intrusive, non-reactive levels of whatever it is that seems to be bothering them, and then reward them for showing us a different behavior. It's a long-term process.
Of the dogs treated for PTSD, half return to some degree of employment, which often includes less stressful work. The others are labeled as excess equipment and, if lucky, are adopted out of the military.
We learned this is a safe place. So when people come over and he gets all worked up and he's barking and whatever, I sit down and then I call him and he'll come sit with me and then he'll relax a little bit and you can pet him and talk to him.
After serving 2 tours in Afghanistan, Buck was retired from the U.S. Marine Corps due to PTSD at the young age of 4. He now lives in San Antonio, Texas, with his adoptive owners, Larry and Lynette Sargent.
It's a gorgeous old dog. It's all right.
The best model that we seem to have for canine PTSD is people PTSD. For instance, we'll see a dog that's hypervigilant. It's just kind of scanning its environment, looking for the next shoe to drop, and or it's hyper responsive to noise or other stimuli.
We had a fella that was a dog handler in Vietnam come over and look at him when we first got him because we thought, what are we going to do with this guy? With them sitting there, he wouldn't respond to any commands. Wouldn't come near, just do that back and forth, barking, all worked up, till I finally got him to sit down beside me. And he said, that's unusual for dogs as well as these guys are trained to not respond to heel or sit or come, or he wouldn't do any of that. It's just like emotionally he's so worked up that he can't, I guess, he can't hear or he can't respond to that command until he settles down inside. And then he does okay. It's all right. We just provide a safe environment for him, no threats and no danger.
We'll see dogs that are showing an interest of getting away. We call it escape or avoidance. They're trying to get away from particular situations, settings, usually ones involved with the settings where they started to show the signs.
When Bricks was in the military, they left him in the back of a vehicle in a cage, and he tried to get out of the cage in the back. And in the process of chewing and biting and trying to get out, he got his tongue stuck in the metal and actually ripped half of his tongue off. So he has now a partial tongue.
In January of 2010, Bricks was officially retired from the Navy with PTSD.
He was no longer a valuable asset to the military. It was pretty obvious that Bricks wanted to go home with me, and I wanted to take Bricks home.
Though out of harm's way now, Bricks continues to suffer from the psychological scars of war, each and every day.
So my brother, we didn't know that he had PTSD. So my brother had a cap gun. He ran down the hallway and there's no gate, shooting it. And then Bricks came after him and started chasing him down the room. My brother locked the door inside the room, and Bricks was barking at the gun still.
It's part of his whole trauma of things. Everything's out to get him now. It's almost a paranoia. Even at this age, he's timid. He cries a lot. He gets very nervous and antsy, paces, whining, crying. He's terrified of booming. Fireworks, explosives. We live on a military base, so anything that they're blowing up around here sets him off. His ears are like his radars. When Bricks is alert and attentive and he's checking for stuff or he's on high alert, he's got his radars up and they're twitching back and forth and they're listening for everything. And when they're up, you can completely see his tattoo. Good. Hi. The dog. A Malinois. He's retired. He usually feels very proud of himself after he's barked at a gate guard. I do take him a lot of places. He's eaten through his kennel, trying to get out of it out of fear while we weren't home. He literally ripped the wire apart to get the door open so he could get out of it. He tried to get out the living room windows. He's tried to break out of the vehicle. He completely bowed the window. On days that he's not feeling very comfortable, he'll be pacing around. He spins a lot of circles in the living room. He'll start panting heavily, and then once he starts getting more and more upset, he starts consuming water like crazy.
But when you get there, it'll be over.
That ball is pretty important to Bricks. He sleeps with one in his kennel. If he leaves his kennel, he takes it with him.
If you try and touch it, he'll go. Come on. Out. Out. Bricks. Out.
The ball is so important to Bricks that the first 3 days we had him at the house, he slept. By day 4, we went to the grocery store. We left Bricks in the house. When we came home, we were gone maybe an hour. He had woken up at some point and gone through every room of the house, and anything that was a ball, a football, a basketball, soccer ball, dolls' heads even, tennis balls, he found them all in our house, and he was laying in the middle of the living room floor on the carpet, and he was surrounded by balls, literally all the way around him, like encircling him, and he was so proud of himself, like wagging his tail, and he was all happy. So we walked through the door, and he's like sitting there, and he's like looking at all the balls and then looking at us like, hey, did you guys realize what a gold mine you have in this house?
Humans and dogs suffering from PTSD display similar symptoms. Medications like Xanax and Prozac are often prescribed to people, and it is no different for the dogs.
He takes Prozac twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. It cuts down a lot on the crying and the nervousness and his panting and pacing and crying and getting up and getting down. He's a little more mellow on it. He'll be on Prozac the rest of his life.
With no cure for PTSD, Cassandra's most successful method of combating Bricks' episodes is comfort and reassurance, a certain empathy he shares. Cassandra, like Bricks, also suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, though non-combat related.
If I'm having a rough time and I need to come out to the living room and sit down, he knows. He gets up with me and he'll come and sit with me on the couch. We're both going through the same thing, and knowing that he's there checking and making sure and reassuring me, like, you know, Mom, it's gonna be okay, like we're gonna survive the whole night. It's very comforting. Bricks, I couldn't replace Bricks, so I don't know what I'll do without him, unfortunately. Sorry, it makes me sad to think about if I didn't have Bricks.
Excited. Ready for it to be 9 o'clock by now, so I can see her.
It's been 2.5 years since Navy dog handler Logan McMichael has seen his military working dog, Farah. Despite the bond they shared while working in Greece and Kuwait, when Logan was transferred stateside, Farah remained military property and was passed on to another handler. After 7 years of military service, Farah began showing decreased motivation and was retired in the spring of 2012. Handlers are given priority in the adoption of their military working dog, but there was a problem. The military does not pay for the transportation of a dog to an adoptive home stateside. It's taken 4 months to raise the money, and now everything is going to change tonight.
We're here. One step closer.
Perro was my first explosive dog that I worked in Greece. Got her in order to go over to Kuwait. We spent 9 months together in Kuwait. Anytime I was upset or anything like that, she was always bright, happy, ready to go to work. Leaving her was heartbreaking. I started bawling.
Yay! Excuse me.
Gorgeous girl.
I know.
Look at you. Look at you. What are you looking at? You looking at yourself? Come here. You go see yourself?
I see.
Come here.
Check it out.
Look over here.
Oh
Look
my
right there.
goodness gracious! Oh my
What you seeing? You seeing everybody?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, you got oh.
What is it?
Big in there?
Presents.
You get your toy?
Well, for a hug, I'll give you a dog.
Thank you so much for everything.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you. Can't thank you all enough.
I'm so glad you turned over here. I'm so glad you
Thank
got
you.
her. Yeah, you're welcome. Have a dog.
Oh, that's a good girl. Oh, you're trying to go say hi to everything. Oh, look at. Oh, what's this? What's that? What you got to say? Oh, you got your phone.
Tonight's been in the making for about 4 months. It took a long time just for the simple fact of trying to raise the funds on my end, trying to get the money together and everything like that to bring her back because it was so expensive.
That's where Debbie Condal and her organization Military Working Dog Adoptions stepped in. They raised the $5,000 and Debbie personally flew overseas to bring Farah home.
What price do you put on the retirement of a hero? What she's done for us is priceless.
They shouldn't be classified as equipment. I think more should be done for them.
They're the unsung heroes of America. Most people don't even realize that they're out on the line in front of everyone else. They're keeping the troops behind them safe. They're keeping the Humvees behind them safe. They're walking point. They're the ones who will get it first. They mess up, they die.
Leica did get it first. After a firefight between U.S. troops and enemy combatants, military working dog Leica was sent to check a building for enemies and explosives. That's when she was ambushed. Leica received multiple gunshot wounds, but never gave up the fight. She attacked and subdued her assailant, saving the lives of her handler and the coalition members behind her. Leica's wounds were severe. After many surgeries, doctors were forced to amputate her front leg. She is now in rehabilitation at Lackland Air Force Base. While the military provided Leica with first-rate medical care, they will not cover the cost of her ongoing health care needs in retirement. Leica's handler is adopting her, and he will now be responsible for Leica's costly medical care. For many, this financial burden is too much to bear, and potential adopters are unable to provide a home for our four-legged heroes of war.
I think the military really needs to step up and recognize these troops. These dogs have been by our human side for generations, and they finally need to start getting the recognition for what they do, because their lives are also lost in war. They are injured.
The military retires dogs that are no longer able to perform their duties. Military working dog Rambo was retired after severely injuring his leg during routine bite wrap training. In August of 2012, Rambo was adopted by former Army veterinarian technician Lisa Phillips. His retirement, however, was far from normal.
The retirement ceremony typically doesn't happen for a military working dog.
During the ceremony, which the press could not attend, Rambo was recognized for his outstanding service. This type of acknowledgement is rare for military working dogs. Classified as equipment, they cannot receive official awards or recognition for their service. But Lisa and Congressman Walter Jones have been fighting to change this. At a press conference following the ceremony, they spoke about the legislation that aims to secure much-needed rights for our nation's four-legged heroes.
I think it's a great way to honor an American hero.
With Lisa's input, Congressman Jones authored the Canine Members of the Armed Forces Act.
Simply, the bill says that service dogs should be seen as more than equipment. They will be treated in a different light. They've earned it.
The bill requires the military to transport dogs retired overseas to their adoptive homes stateside, allows dogs to receive official awards and recognition for their service, establishes a non-profit to cover the dog's medical care and retirement, and reclassifies military working dogs from equipment to canine service members. The bill passed in the House on May 18, 2012.
It's so seldom that you can say that you have a bill as important as I think this bill is, and everybody supports it. And Senator Blumenthal is going to try to get it into the Senate bill.
I will be offering this bill as an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act when it comes to the floor of the United States Senate for a vote.
A few months later, Senator Blumenthal updated the crowd at the Heroes and Hounds Drive for U.S. troops in Simsbury, Connecticut.
This bill passed unanimously. Not everything that I wanted, but I hope eventually we can accomplish all of the measures that were contained in our bill.
The bill was voted on December 4th and it passed unanimously. They did take out the reclassification part, but we're quite happy that at least it's going this far. Rambo and I will just keep on with this mission and until they get reclassified to a canine service member of the armed forces.
This bill will go to the President's desk. It will be a very strong step forward, but the fight is far from over. We need to keep working on it.
President Barack Obama signed the bill into law on January 2, 2013, while vacationing in Hawaii.
Yes, and this is Rambo.
Though the fight for military working dogs continues, Lisa is encouraged by the progress that has been made, particularly in Rambo's life.
That's a good boy.
He's been on tramadol and Rimadyl since the injury in April of 2011. So through great discussion with different veterinarians, we decided to amputate, and that was done about a month ago. And so now my four-legged hero is now a three-legged hero.
Lisa was lucky. A veterinarian donated his services to perform Rambo's expensive surgery. The new law establishes a non-profit to help with the medical care of retired military working dogs. But the non-profit will rely on donations from the American people. Military dogs give so much, and now we can give back to them. Since his surgery, Rambo has been enjoying a pain-free retirement. Psychological wounds, like those that plague Bricks, are harder to address.
Cured is a hard word. It's better to talk about the word manage rather than the word cure. And to put it in sort of a very graphic example, we can't do brain transplants.
You hear it? Hear it? Can you go sniff it? Sniff it out. Go sniff it.
Much is still unknown about canine post-traumatic stress disorder. As with human PTSD, there is no cure. For the dogs, treatment continues to be an experiment. And the number of military working dogs diagnosed with PTSD is expected to double over the next year. Despite his daily struggle, Bricks seems to be enjoying retired life, far from the battlefield.
Can you sniff? Sniff?
My family, none of us could imagine what it would be without Bricks. He's actually, adding him has been such a joy because he is just a wonderful dog to hang out with. He'll play if you want to play, he'll relax if you want to relax, and he'll comfort you if you're feeling down. And even with his little quirks of the things he's terrified of, we wouldn't have it any other way, honestly. He earned it.